Okay. There's my girl. Her name is Betty Lou. Kentucky. You're probably the only guy at the airport that's got this.
Oh, no.
Really?
Yeah, way to go.
You got to put the plane away. That's my girl. $4464Y. Hey, Mike. You should have got your number N44BAY.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think about changing it. Used to own it.
Uh-huh.
Not the owner that I bought it from, but the guy that owned it.
Yeah.
The one before that. And I thought it'd be kind of an insult if I took his numbers off of it.
Right.
I said, well, I'll leave it. And come to find out, he didn't care. It was just a number to him.
Yeah, but you know what? With the number, you can look up the history of it, you know.
Yeah, well, I know the history of this plane from the time it left the factory.
Is that right?
It left the factory in a sea container, went to Paraguay. And they flew mining samples for the Espelon Mining Company.
Jeez.
And the problem is the locals thought it was DEA, so they'd shoot at it. So after a year, they loaded the back up with ferry tanks. Guy flew it from Paraguay to Miami. And he landed it there, and my friend Jack bought it.
Jeez.
In Miami. He put all the new engine in. So that guy kept
He did what?
the valve.
Oh, blew a valve?
So he had to put a new engine.
Uh-huh.
And the guy owned it about 12 years then. And he was getting married. And his wife didn't like airplanes. So, so he sold the airplane to me.
And had you flown before?
Pardon?
Had you flown before?
I had a Cherokee, a Piper Cherokee.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hey, my man.
I'm making a video of my and it needs to come and what I accomplished in my lifetime. I was born in 1925, and I was the third of 6 children. My mother was Josephine Chapa, and my father was Francis James Nazaro James. My grandfather on my mother's side was Eduardo Chapa. Grandpa, Frank Nazaro, was a foreman with the railroad. He could get work. The Nazaros were 6 boys, all talented in many sports. And I remember him taking me to his games and collecting hats. He hit. And I used to bring him. He had an opportunity to join the New York Giants, professional baseball. My mother had assumed that it was a vagabond life, and she refused to let him go because he was already 2 children. Assuming guy, he was very, very talented, and just like I would always think of Joe DiMaggio. He had class. He played quite a bit of semi-pro ball, and he used to be brought in years ago on Sandlot, and he used to get $30 a game. And I remember going. Talking about my, we came from a family who was very loving. I mean, there was we never left the house without kissing our mother. It was that kind of a family, and I that. We had problems in the beginning because during the Depression, couldn't get work, and he finally got out to the WPA, and he was working for $12 a day. Frankly, I think at that time we were in welfare, but I didn't know that. It never seemed that way, although once a month some woman would come into the house, peas and beans and ketchup and mayonnaise was a no-no. We couldn't luxury. So we had it pretty hard in the beginning, but still there was a tremendous amount of. We had a fellow whom we called an uncle, but he really wasn't, but he was a very good friend. And his name was Jack, and he every Christmas acted like Santa Claus, and he would make a Christmas for us. He would bring loads and loads of gifts to us, and that was really a fantastic. And we lived in a neighborhood whereby we could in safety all day, and most of the time, of course, it was either baseball or basketball or whatever. And we were in what they would call an Italian neighborhood. Oh, and there were fireworks at the end of the 3-day festival, which was really exciting. And I didn't. My dad finally got on his employment for quite a few years. Maybe I should say this now. One of the most devastating things that has happened to me, losing my dad. He was killed in an airplane crash, 65 years old. And he left us too soon because he was in excellent health. 62 years old, playing with young guys. And I remember one time he came into the house and third base, and a kid came in and slid in, and he got caught in the webbing of my glove, and I broke his ankle. It's gonna be that way, you should quit. Let the young kids play the game. You've had your time. Tennis, golf, football, track. He was a state. But and of course golf. We play golf a lot here. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what's happening to me when I was growing up. As I said, I think I was blessed by a good family life. Getting to my history, I remember reading a lot because I'm a reader. As a matter of fact, I'm doing it right now. As back in 2004, I had a triple bypass, and I've read. I enjoy reading, but unfortunately, it doesn't get me moving around. And then again, of course, desire or the ability to play a good game of golf. So I kind of walked away from that. My physical situation really plays havoc with me, so I go out as often as I would like to. I just played last week, but I I graduated from high school in 1943, and then in June and July of 43, I was inducted. I was sent to Texas, and we trained for 16 weeks. And that for replacement, so that was the only training that you got. Uh, and so from Tyler, Texas, they took us over on the Ile-de-France boat, and then eventually we arrived in Ireland, and that's where I spent about 6 to 8 months in Ireland, in the army there overseas. And after spending that time there, we then were shipped for the Normandy invasion. And then on June 5th, and then we were loaded on a ship and on June 5th, and we sailed this invasion. I cut it.
Okay. Good.
Um, when I went to Europe, and I was shipped to Scotland, to Ireland, and joined, who was a part of the First Army. So as I said, we were into the coast of France on June 5th. We boarded landing crafts, and we was not nets and dropped ourselves into a little landing craft, and then we took off for the coast. A few hours have elapsed, and the second division was our support the first division and the 29th division, and mop-up group. And it wasn't a good to know where the pockets of resistance where it was going to be, but invariably our aim was to get as much ground as we could so that we wouldn't be pushed back. So when we got off our landing crafts, we of course unfortunately rough, and the landing craft was our landing craft was. Everybody scrambled out, and about half a dozen of these poor guys went right down and drowned. And they pulled up the ramp, and they realized that the landing craft had a bomb crater. And so the sailor gave it the gun again and to shore, and we got out, and the water was about to our waist, and we held our rifles up over our head. We had around us, and 88s were fired, but nothing compared to what the actual D-Day in the first hour. It was really, really awful. I mean, we lost. And at this particular time, I am not, has really taken over and obliterated 4 days. I just really don't remember many of the things. I think I've been suppressing it for so many years. Gotten exactly what I did. I know that I had to do something to survive. I don't even remember going to the bathroom. I mean, that's how much I've just shut off. Certain areas that were traumatic for me, because you have to remember, I've never, when we were going in those early days to take prisoners unless we were told to. And it seemed like on the third day they told us it wasn't humane. And so we were finding that, matter of fact, they would tie a chair up in the tree and sit there and wait for us so that you wouldn't know where the shot came from. And so that you never knew when your turn was going to be next and where it was going to come from. Little field where there's very high hedgerows. They must have been a little stone hut, and we approached the hut to make sure that there was nobody. Found 3 Germans sitting there having lunch, and of course they jumped up and knocked their benches down and raised their hands, and we didn't. And we tried to talk to them in English. And so we had a, a soldier with us that could communicate it that way. We found that they were working a guard duty. They had 3 other guys, 2 hours off, and so it's kind of and and so the sergeant said, "All right, who wants to take them back?" And I want to leave our our soldiers, our friends, our pals, and well, let's get rid of them. Let's get out of here. And that part of it really uh, left a mark. And then I really walking guard duty at night, and I thought that was ridiculous. But we have to protect the settled in at night because the Germans didn't like to fight at night, and neither did we. And and there are a couple of times when I heard a bullet go past my ear like a bumblebee. Those are the sounds that you hear when bullets are coming at you. Luck, because I survived that. So anyway, we now I get um, we we're St. Lo, and that morning at 6:30, that was our objective, was to reach St. Lo, take that little city, and we heard when we were ready, we heard a tremendous explosion off to the side on the road. Down there to take a look at what happened, and it was our ammunition was coming up in a half track, 88, and blew up our ammunition. So unfortunately, our orders were we went with hardly enough ammunition to do the job. And so about of advancing, all hell broke loose. And tanks, and uh, we heard Germans coming up alongside of it to the right, and nobody knew how many they were. We were in fields that had hedgerows that were 12 feet high, and I'm trapped in a field with about 12 to 15 guys, and my sergeant is up against the hedgerow, and I am about 5 feet away from him. I see his machine gun being slammed in between the. It I couldn't fire because he was too close to me. I couldn't do anything. Quiet. And they started to open up on the guys further down. And a few minutes later, over came a hand grenade, and it landed to me. I looked at it, and I was going to try to grab it and throw it back, and I realized that he was going to go off pretty quickly. And so all I did was I tried to protect my face and my the hand grenade went off, and it blew me up over my back. And but I was still able to function. The sky was yellow and orange. I mean, I had a hard time getting back to normal. I finally, my stomach, And I looked up at my sergeant, and he's peppered with shrapnel. I said, no. He said, get out of here. They'll hit you with another hand grenade. But forward, he's going to see me. He said, take your chances. Did exactly what he do. I started shuffling back, away from the gun, away from the hopefully a hand grenade. At 30 yards, and of course they decided to concentrate on me. And went to my right, and I moved over to the left. And the second burst was my, and then finally the third burst got me in the left shoulder. It just knocked my arm in back of my body. And I don't know what they did while after I was wounded, why they didn't shoot me again. Maybe the guy upstairs was just there for me. It wasn't my time. I just lost it. I thought I couldn't move. And I heard my buddy say, get over here, Nazaro. And I said, I can't. He said, there's nothing wrong with your legs. Get over here. And about 10 yards and back to my left, and he's hiding behind, he's crouched behind. That was about 18 inches in diameter and only about 5 feet wide, left in the field. So I don't know how I did it because I had my arm, my arm was attached to my body because cuffs were tight to from my uniform. And so that it was to my, and I got over there, and for about 3 or 4 minutes, and all of a sudden we see a hand grenade come, and it bounced on the log and shuffled to get away from the log, and the hand grenade went off, and I had my hand out, and the log came down and missed my fingers by 2 to 3 inches, and I lost my cool. I stood up, I looked at them, that next hedgerow, and I made 2 or 3 steps into that hedgerow, and for my feet, without stumbling, I have no idea. But when I reached, and I was starting to go through the shrubbery, they fired at me again, and the bullet went through my right, the other side. And I actually saw myself being wounded. I saw the white flesh coming out. Next to my captain. And his famous words were, "What's the matter, Nazaro?" I didn't have nice words to say to him. But I had forgotten that we didn't have any ammunition. And I said, "Why aren't you taking care of us? We got guys trapped out there." He said, "We're not ammunition. We're waiting for some backup." And so miraculous things happened for me. Within 10 or 15, I gave my, and 10 or 15 minutes, here comes some medics with a stretcher, and they take me back to the rear. This particular time, we're still trapped. They still got to seal off. They're in backup. And but they picked me up and they brought me to the right side of this field. Back now with tanks, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And the poor guys, they dropped my. they don't have a gun. I mean, without any ammunition or anything. So I said, hey, wait a minute. Just take me a little further to the right. There's a road that drops down. They came back and ran towards that end of the field and lowered my stretcher down the 10 feet. And then the road was below that particular level. As soon as my stretcher stopped at the base of that bank, up came, and the captain jumped out and looked at me and he said, "You're in bad shape, soldier." Yeah. He said, "We'll do the best we can." And right away he gave me a plasma, and then they loaded me in the ambulance, the battalion aid, and then they loaded us on trucks with slats on the side, and they put the stretchers in there and brought us back to the coast. And we were about maybe 20 to 25 miles in at the time. Back to the coast, and unfortunately, as we were going back, these darn snipers were firing, and a couple of guys got hit again, which was unfortunate. But they brought us back and did 3 tents for the wounded, and I spent 3 days in Clare. And the first day there was hardly any help because I was there at about 12 o'clock, 12:30, and they did not operate on me until at night. And I got another scare because when I was there on the ground waiting for my turn, a priest was giving me my last rites. And what had happened was the hand grenade split my chest, and I had hundreds of pieces of shrapnel in my liver. And so they had to do something and take out those specks of shrapnel, but I still have a lot in me. They couldn't get it all out. And so the second day, nurses came in for the first time, and that was on the 12th. That was a surprise to us. And then on the, I guess the 13th of June, they flew us back on the C-6s to London. And we were there for 1 day, and the Germans finally launched the B-2s. And really did some damage in London. And so we were to get out of there, and so they loaded us on the trucks and brought it, shipped us to Birmingham, away from the coast, the East Coast anyway. And 30 days. And then I was brought back to Massachusetts, into Worcester, Massachusetts, into a named Lovell General Hospital. And I spent quite a few months there simply because my left arm could not heal. It would never knit properly. They kept breaking it and resetting it for about 7 or 8 months, and then finally they decided that they had to cut my bone and join it together like a carpenter would join 2 pieces of wood. And they took a bone from my leg, put it across my bone, and screwed it down with 4 stainless steel screws. It took, and I spent 16 months there in the hospital. It was shipped to Camp Upton in Long Island, and I was later. And so that's my experience in the war. I'm a lucky guy for being able to survive. I hate to tell you, but I've been seeing a psychologist for several months. I have been diagnosed with, and I just can't get it out of my system. My psychologist I have, and I think about that a lot. I got home, they discharged me, and I didn't know. I floundered around for a few months, getting drunk at night, blowing about $4,000 on savings that I had on drinking. And I suddenly realized that my mother was really upset, and I decided that I had to do something with my life. So I enrolled in community college for 2 years. I always wanted to be an artist and a commercial artist, and so I enrolled in the Parsons School of Design in New York, and I spent 3 years. And I had a situation whereby much schooling as I thought I needed before I went out to work, and that was because of my. And so, as I said, I spent 5 years going to school, and I finally immediately got a job in New York with a studio, and I ran into a fella in Connecticut where I live who needed some freelance, and I took on some of his assignments and amount of work for him, and I realized that hey, if I keep doing this and not getting paid money, because it ended up to being a substantial amount of money that he owed me. Well, he turned around and so I took it, and we had an agency, and I was with him for 9 years. Then I eventually decided to go off on my own, and I had done that for several years, up until 1973, and we moved to Florida. But let me get back to some of my notes here. Well, let me get back to I jumped ahead a little bit. My first job, of course, was a studio in New York, as I said. But in the meantime, after that first year, I met Phyllis in 1951. And we had 3 boys and a girl, and we're proud of them. Larry is our oldest. Ronnie is our second boy. He has no children, but he raises out. And Jimmy has 1 daughter, and Michaela has 2 sons. My daughter, that's my own. She's the apple of my eye. So anyway, I was a partner in this advertising agency, and I was a member of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, member of the Camera Club, and of course, president of the Camera Club. I chaperoned Miss Connecticut, and took her to Atlantic City. She didn't win though, and in my times there, we moved we moved after Larry, we moved to Fairfield, Connecticut, and that's where we spent most of our adult life as a married couple. I played a lot of sports. I played golf, tennis, I skied, I played paddleball. I won several trophies of golf. I played a lot of golf. As I said, that's not one of my things I did. I appeared on Concentration TV show and won a trip to Bermuda, which was fantastic. Won 1,000 cigars. So we then came to Florida in 1973, and we moved to, which is down south, right west of Fort Lauderdale. And I worked in an art studio and a couple of agencies. And I wasn't very happy because I'm not the kind who likes to take orders from somebody. I like to be my own person. So I decided I'd go again. And then, strangely enough, the reason we came to Florida was that we decided that 5 hours a week was not the way we wanted to live. So we decided to come to Florida, since we were coming every year, come to Florida to live. And so I gave up my studio and came south to Coral Springs. And but then, as I said, after about years, I opened up my own ad agency again, and a publishing business in Coral Springs. Became quite successful. At one point, I was the only advertising agency in Coral Springs, but a few others came in, and they left because I still held on, and I used a tremendous amount of work for Westinghouse, who was building Coral Springs, and I would venture to say responsible for building Coral Springs because we did any number of full-page ads pushing the town. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I was on the beautification committee in the city, and I also got myself involved with the Broward School Board, and that about kind of sums up to we decided that I would no longer work. I retired, and we moved to the Villages in 1997. And as my family knows, that I am heavily involved in art, and I have been formerly a vice president and director of the VA, the Visual Arts Association. And I enter a lot of the local shows, and I've won many ribbons. Concentrating now on colored pencil artwork, and I enjoy that very much. I'm a member of the photo club here, the photo club. I create ads for my son and his business, and my daughter-in-law, they're in business together. And since March the 4th, after my bypass surgery, I have read over 500 books. I played a great deal of golf in my lifetime. One time, a few years back, I had the opportunity to putt. And that became a real funny situation because I the first putt. And then the gentleman running the show said, "Why don't you take another shot for a lap for the crowd?" Because there was about 60 people watching this thing. And I put the ball down and put it, and I made the putt. But no money. And that's about my life, as much as I'm no magical. I don't. I'm just an average Joe who had a very tough start in our family, and I was determined to make something of myself, in which I am proud that I did. I raised 4 kids. We've been happily married for 57 years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Thank
You.
I mean, I just